Let us start. Yeah. Hello, very good afternoon to everybody. Hi, this is Souradeep, this side, and right now with me is Vivek Bajaj sir, who is along with you in the chat window. Now, in this session, we will be discussing about the crude oil. From yesterday, what we have been listening is only crude oil, crude oil, crude oil everywhere. Why? Because of this, what happened yesterday is that crude oil actually went negative. Crude oil is a physical commodity that is used to produce diesel and petrol. And what happened yesterday is this, it went to minus 40. So people started asking that if they are going to get money for filling up their fuel tanks in the petrol pumps. And there was a lot of confusion. So this was is what happened starting a day at 18 positive. Crude oil went to minus 40. I will check 1 second. Are all of you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me right now at this moment? Are you able to hear me? Can everybody please answer if they are able to hear me right now? Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Am I audible? I'm audible, right, sir? Yeah. Yeah. I will be here live with you on WhatsApp. मैं mute कर देता हूँ. Okay. ठीक है. In case there is any problem, I'll tell you. Don't worry. Okay. 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 Yeah. So what we were talking about, because thank you for confirming that I'm audible. So everywhere yesterday there was a discussion that okay, why crude oil has become negative? How can a commodity like crude oil become negative? Because we normally don't believe that a instrument or a commodity that can be negative. We go to the market to buy something and we get that instrument and we also get money for it. It doesn't happen in life. So it was very surprising event for a lot of people that how could this crude oil price actually come to this extent where we saw the negative movement. This is what happened yesterday. And the global media everywhere, we heard the murmur and that there was a roar of confusion that what is going to happen, what is happening. As I said, people were asking, will we get money for filling up our tanks in the of the vehicles in the petrol or diesel pump? But actually, that is not the case. What went down is not that every crude oil became uh, below zero or minus 40. And as who have joined late, I want to tell you that this is Shoradeep. I have 4 years of trading crude oil directly into the international market in the ICE exchange where I did trading. And along with me is Vivek sir. Vivek sir is along with you. He will be in the chat window. He will be answering a lot of the questions you will be put forward to. So again, coming back to the point. Now, this was one of the surprising event. Like For very few commodities, this has happened in earlier that it went to negative. I will show you a graph here. So this was published in Financial Times today, and here it shows the percentage fall in crude oil in the past, the biggest fall that had happened. Yeah, so this is the graph. Here you saw that from $18 it went to minus uh, 40. So it was almost 300% fall that happened yesterday. Before that, it was around 30-40% fall that happened in 1991. But yesterday fall was gigantic compared to everything. But not every crude oil actually fell. What fell is this. This is the CL1. It is coming right now. This is the May contract of WTI crude oil, that is traded in NYME, or NYMEX crude oil, that actually decreased. So NYMEX crude oil is a crude oil that is actually traded in the US. This is a light sweet crude oil. Right now also you can see it is trading 0.966. It is in the minus. But if you ask me that is it the only form of crude oil? No. There are a lot of variations of crude oil. Let me show you here. See, the crude oil is produced across the world and it is traded across the world. It is most widely traded commodity across the world. Right now, I am opening the various kind of crude oils that are traded all across the world. WTI crude oil, Brent crude oil, and then another important is the Dubai grade crude oil. The most important of them is the Brent crude oil. Actually, every other crude oil in the world, apart from the North American crude oil, North America means Mexico, USA, and Canada. So apart from this section of crude oil, every crude oil is actually benchmarked around this Brent crude oil, which is basically in the region of the North European, your North Sea in the European crude oil. So all the Middle East crude oil, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, all these guys actually benchmark their crude oil according to this Brent crude oil. And there is much similarity. You can see the Indian basket also here. So none of them right now you can see are negative. None of them are negative. Yeah, one or two. These are Castrol getting in US things because US flag you are there. They are also negative, but none of the other crude oil are negative. So what went actually into the negative is the near month, that is the May expiry of the WTI crude oil, and that made a lot of headlines across the world. Now, to understand from here that most important thing is that crude oil is traded in monthly contract, and the monthly contract actually expires 3 business days ahead of the month before. Like today we are April, today it is expiring. The WTI crude oil May contract is expiring. So the May contract will expire 3 business days ahead of 25, that is today. So today it is expiring the May contract. If I talk about after today, what will be traded is the June contract, and that is why you can see the June contract right now trading, because this is the most active contract. It is down, but it is not negative. You have to pay $16.56. Now, before going into that, how this happened that the May contract could go down to minus 40, let me explain you a little bit about the crude oil itself. Now, see, when we talk about crude oil, the most important products that are derived out of crude oil are diesel and the petrol. The world runs on diesel and petrol. Let me show you a graph here. Now, if we see, this is the oil demand graph. This was the March report. So this is one of the agencies, US based agencies, EIA. They put down the base case, the low case, the highest case of crude oil demand across the world in the first quarter 2020, the second quarter 2020. You can see the first quarter demand was 97 and the second quarter demand was expected at 100. So that was their expectation. And third quarter they thought that okay, overall it will go to 102 million barrel per day, and that is how. Now let me show you the supply picture that is according to EIA. Now EIA expected total non-OPEC. Non-OPEC means not Middle Eastern countries. Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, Iraq, all those countries actually, and there is Mexico, there is Venezuela also with them, along with them from the OPEC. And apart from that, in that region, there is one big producer, that is the Russia. Now, apart from that, all other countries actually were producing in the first quarter around 66 million barrel. 66 million, and it was expected to be between 66 and 67 over the entire year. Now at the same time, the OPEC plus supply that was actually estimated by the EIA was around in the range of baseline supply was around 43. So you can understand that 67 plus 43, already the world was producing around 10 to 13 million barrel extra of crude oil every day. Now, crude oil is a kind of a commodity that cannot be stored very easily. You need very dedicated, very secured areas to store crude oil. India only has 40 million barrel of crude oil storage with it, because they have to be guarded properly, because they can anytime catch fire. Yeah, they are stored in tankers, but they are also very expensive storages. So it is not like wheat, it is not like gold, it is not like sugar that you can store in any confined place and use them later. So crude oil generally, when the crude oil prices are in the range of 60 to 80, which it was few months ago only, you will find that crude oil production was just 1 or 2 million extra of the demand. And when crude oil just goes 1 or 2 million demand, what happens is that it comes out from the global storage. So across the globe, if I cut down here, I will show you. See, across the globe, you can see that 6.8 billion barrels. 6.8 billion is 6,800 million barrel. So that is the global storage. So when the production of the crude oil is lesser than the demand, crude oil price goes up because people draw from this storage. Now, if you can see, 60% was already filled up, and normally the general idea is it is normally filled to 50%, but 60% got filled up, and 13 million barrels world was regularly producing. So in a month it was 400 million barrel. 68% means see 40% of 7 million is something around, I would say, 2800 million barrel was capacity, or 2600 million barrel capacity was left. Out of that, 400 million barrel was extra being produced all across the world in the first quarter. So by no other means, it had to be get filled up very quickly in 7 months. And that's why if I go to the oil price chart here, the oil price had started decline from 60 to this region. Now what happened is, towards the end of February and March, the world got stuck by the COVID virus, the COVID-19 virus. And COVID-19 actually forced many countries actually to shut down. And the shutdowns were announced around towards the end of March. But if I see at the beginning of the March, the crude oil prices has started declining during this point of time, because Suddenly at least 30-40% crude oil demand has vanished because people were actually expecting lockdown, and that's why, due to this overproduction and the tankers getting filled. And now let me tell you one thing: whatever 2800 was left, that cannot be filled totally, because crude oil storages are like something where you cannot fill 100%. You can maximum fill 80%, otherwise you cannot take the oil from the tank, or you cannot break the oil with other materials. So basically, when a crude oil storage is literally 80 to 82% full, actually the total capacity is actually full. You, if you put more oil into the tanker, there is a scope that there will be various kind of accidents. So literally there was only 1500 million capacity left, and 1400 was overproduction every month, and that's why crude oil price started declining. Now I will take you to a tweet that Vivek Bajaj sir had made on the day of 8th March. Because on the day of 8th March, what happened is that there was a meeting of the OPEC and the non-OPEC. So they decided, okay, let us cut down some of the OPEC and Russia, so that out of 40 million barrel, let us cut down a little bit of oil, so that if the rate of production of excess oil declines, the crude oil prices could go up. But due to the ego tussle, because what was happening is that USA was increasing its crude oil production, the ego tussle, the meeting failed. And Vivek sir actually tweeted, eventful weekend in the Middle East markets. At that point of time, price was around 40 or 44. So OPEC talks collapse without agreement, which sparks a Sunday sell-off in Gulf stocks, because the Gulf countries, like they are trading on Sundays for their Friday is a holiday, so they are saw that there is a sell-off, and they were actually looking for a very lower prices, so they were scared. Because so at that time actually I also predicted that there is a 25 dollar per barrel crude oil is a prospect. You can see here that I also actually, looking at Sir's tweet, actually tweeted at that point of time. I will take you to the chart. The price was here something 42, and the next day opening was around 33, 34 on Monday, on 9th, and maximum 36 it went, but it maintained the downward spiral. And during the month of March, what happened is that the corona crisis actually aggravated all across the globe: the Europe, the USA, the countries with more number of cars and more activity actually started facing lockdown. And that's why the demand started plunging. Now, there is a funny thing that I would like to show you here, that as we had tweeted on 8th of this, so next day Goldman Sachs also came down a $30, 30 barrel target. So we just jokingly tweeted, just for kidding, took my prediction, but my prediction was 25 dollar per barrel. And on the next tweet I will show that how it unfolded, and we were ahead of time in guessing from our firm. We gradient, we were completely analyzing ourselves, we were ahead of the curve in predicting what was going on in the market. So she's a very famous journalist. So the tweet says Saudi Aramco announces that it received directive from the Ministry of Energy to increase maximum sustainable capacity from 12 million barrels to 13 million barrels. So Saudi Arabia was very annoyed with the actions of Russia and USA. So they said, okay, I will also increase the oil, let the oil plunge, and uh, let the oil plunge, and everybody will suffer. Then everybody will cut. Why alone we will cut? So at that point of time, what happened is that we also revised our forecast that $20 per barrel of crude oil is reality. Because earlier our prediction was only $25 per barrel. So immediately on the day of March 11, we predicted this. So this was the March 11. Though price didn't react that point of time, 32, 33, but actually, if I come to a later date, when actually the corona crisis was deepening and almost 30 million barrel per day of crude requirement or demand was actually vanishing out of the world. Everywhere, air travel banned, people in lockdown in many cities. So what happened is that our what we had predicted on 8th March, on 18th March, we saw due to this lockdown effect, this $25 target was reached, and then it started somewhat trading between 20-25 as there were hope for OPEC non-OPEC deal. But by this time it was quite late, because by this time what happened is that OPEC and non-OPEC actually started the discussion, and there was a 10 million barrel actually cut. And we also tweeted that time, say what will do you do with 10 million barrel cut, because if 30 million or 40 million demand has collapsed, by 10 million cut by OPEC and Russia doesn't help anything. And that time only we said that oil will go to single digit. And last 2 weeks what we saw, I will show you here. This is the weekly oil production from the USA. So US produced around 13 million barrel of oil every day. So trying to reload it, every day US used to produce 13 million barrel of crude oil. But what happened is that, seeing the scenario of the demand destruction, US also started actually cutting down its oil production. I will show you here. See what happened? 13 million barrel, 30 million barrel every year, suddenly 12.4, and then 12.300. But noticing that actually we had actually treated that time, but it is too late. Still, it will be difficult to stop WTI and Brain both to trade in single digit this time. This was on 18th. Now, let me show you the crude chart here. As crude oil, uh, 16th, this was 17th. See, so crude oil was not actually breaking this level of 1925 for long. You can see here 1925. So when it was not breaking, but still we had a strong belief that it is very difficult for it to go not trade in single digit, and that's what happened yesterday. You can see yesterday the front month actually went, not only went to 10, and it went to negative. And that time Vivek sir told me, see, it is trading at $7 na, it may go to negative. And we didn't, I also tweeted that later. If I tell you, I also tweeted that later. So what sir has said, that there can be a negative possibility, because sir told me that it was possible, and because that was $7. See, and few moment later it was 19. So it was 17 hours, 1 hour later it was 1066, and eventually it went to minus 40. Now, why minus 40 for this contract and not other contract? For that you have to understand a little bit of about US inventory. Now the world is having 6.8 billion of crude oil inventory. Out of that, US has strategic reserve of around 700 million barrel. Out of that, 630 million barrel of crude oil is already there. So US at that point of time started deciding, uh, yeah, I will show you strategic reserve part. US started filling up the crude oil of 70 million barrel, but strategic reserve is built such a way that more than 0.5 million barrel cannot go into the reserve in a single day. So that is why it was not possible for US to absorb all the crude oil that was there. Now US reserve is basically three types. One is strategic reserve, another is commercial reserve of crude oil, and third is the product inventory. Now, what was happening that every week, if we go to the US inventory data, one second. I will take you there. Every Wednesday, USA comes out with the inventory. So their oil inventory is three parts, as I said. One is strategic reserve, which was not being filled very fast, and another is the Cushing oil reserve. Now, in the Oklahoma, here is the Cushing map. Here in the Oklahoma province of USA, they are having their oil reserve, that is 80 million barrel, and out of that 59 million barrel was already full by last week. Why it was happening, I will show you. If I show you the US crude oil inventory, how it was behaving, it is coming, just give me a moment. So every week, if I yeah, it has come. Every week you can see there were 19 million, 15 million, 13 million barrel of crude oil. Earlier it was not so much, but as soon as the lockdown started in USA, this kind of crude oil was actually being filled. So suddenly the Cushing inventory, uh, that is like this actually. If you can see in the Oklahoma, the Cushing tankers are like this actually. Let me enhance. So this is the area where this US reserve is 80 million barrel reserve is there. So that started getting filled, and now there was only 21 million barrel space left. So what could someone do? Because the obligation of the buyer who had the contract in the CME, if I show you, it is the obligation of the buyer. Yeah, so delivery process. So this is the obligation of the buyer to specify that where to take the delivery of the crude oil, because what will happen, the seller will deposit his crude oil to the Cushing inventory, and from there to the connected pipelines, it will go to the refiners. Normally, who are the buyers of the physical crude? The refiners. But as there was lockdown, already product inventory was so much high, and there was no demand for gasoline or petrol, or petrol and gasoline are the same, or diesel, that refiners didn't want to refine any more oil. Also, they didn't have the manpower to actually run the refineries, because there was shutdown in all the states. So the person with the crude oil has a desperation to sell it anyway at any cost to a buyer, so that that buyer can take this crude oil away, because the person who had already happening is had this had to actually dispose it, because they could not store it with themselves, they had to actually dispose it. So the person who had bought the crude oil earlier, he was completely stuck. He cannot do away with this crude oil, and for indefinite period he cannot keep the Cushing tank filled, which was already filling so fast. And that is why there was a local problem. And due to this local problem, because the person had to deliver, the person had to sell out. Yeah, not this one. Yeah. So because of that desperation, he had to sell at minus 40 also. So the person who bought somewhere here, he had storage capacity, maybe some refiner who thought, okay, minus $40, let me take it. Let me take it at this price, because this itself is a very big profit. So someone bought here around this point of time, and the person who had it, he had to give the crude oil also, and he had to give this huge amount of margin also to actually get rid of his crude oil. Now what is happening is that as the situation is becoming more and more aggravated in many countries, and this front month is going to expire today, which is trading right now somewhere here, you are seeing minus 6.3. So though minus 40 was not actually a very logical price, but the desperation pushed the price lower. Maybe $6, $7 is a minus 6, minus 7 is a logical price that you take away as its storage cost and also take the crude oil. But you don't know what desperation can do to some people into the market. Now, what you can see that this price, as we saw that it was staying about 20 and this has gone to minus 40, and right now we are in a situation where crude oil inventory is almost filled in the USA. Now what will happen? Because by next 2 to 3 weeks every bit of inventory that is available in the USA will be filled, and due to the ban of travel, US cannot ship this crude oil to some other places also. So so what they can do, because you have to understand crude oil production is not production of some other commodity. You cannot suddenly stop a crude oil well, because if you stop a crude oil well, suddenly it takes 1.5 months at least, and again to restart it will take 1.5 months. And actually when you stop production of a crude oil, to restart you need huge manpower, very expensive machinery. So even if you are producing at zero and putting it out, the producer actually has to keep on producing if they are sure that okay, within 3 months situation will be correct. So they are producing crude oil, but there is no way to store it, there is no place to store it. So that is why our guess is that as the market knows this situation, this June contract would keep on trading between $5 to $10. We are not giving it a trading call again, what we posted every time earlier, that we are not giving a trading call. So what we are trying to say is that this price $5 to $10, it may trade for most of its time after this expires, because everybody knows that there is not going to be an easy solution to restart. If the US economy restarts and if the transportation begins, it may bounce back. But until and unless there is a clarity of when it is going to open up, as you can see today only Singapore had announced extension to 1st June. Many of the European countries are extending the lockdown till May. We are also the 3rd May. So we don't know which country will begin. So by the time it approaches the next month, maybe from the beginning of the month only, or towards the after the first week, it will directly start trading into the minus, because nobody would be like to have a near month contract, because having a near month contract is like an obligation. uh, so having the near month contract, one second, yeah, let me go to the CME website. Yeah, so if I go to the CME website and if I look at the quote, one second, so I can see that June July contracts are still trading of this was yesterday, this was few hours back price obviously. So few hours back it was $20, the June contract, it has already dipped, but the other month contracts are a little bit progressively higher. They are still having a higher value because people are thinking okay, economy will start down maybe by August, maybe by September, that's why they are having higher value. But I expect at least by the month of May, if there is no visible sign of opening up these two contracts, June and July, to dip very sharply. And maybe June will trade in negatives and July would be again $5-10 if there is no scope of opening up the economy. So this will actually be a situation in the front month, and simultaneously Brent also may drop. The Brent, I will show you the Brent price right now. One second. See, if I go to the commodities, the Brent is trading right now at $21. The crude oil WTI is 16. The Brent may actually start trading at sub $10 level, because the factor is that still the Middle East is exporting some crude oil to Indian refineries, some other refineries. Still the total world is not totally shut down. But trust me, India's oil consumption has dropped 70%. 1 month or 2 months more if the shutdown is extended. Major countries which import oil are India and China. With this huge demand destruction, India almost imports 3.5 million barrel to 4 million every day. If that comes down, then only thing that will be it will be trading is below $10 for quite some time, until and unless the economy start opening up. And it is a very difficult decision to take at this point of time. As I said, to start again, they will need 1.5 months. To stop, they will need 1 month. And in between, there is a huge cost. The cost is so huge that keep on producing in between without getting any money is also better than restarting after 3 months. So they are in a very critical situation right now. And that is how the crude oil market right now pans over the thing. So this is where I just wanted to give you an idea that we are not going to get crude oil when we fill our carts. Shradeep, your internet is getting stuck. Okay. Okay, sir. Yeah, so now we can take the questions, and you can drop. I'm dropping this video call with you. You can take the questions now. Yes, yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah. So as sir said that we will be start taking the questions right now at this point of time. So let me take the questions. Now, natural gas is a different commodity with a different kind of a storage requirement. As more people, as Hans is asking, that as more people are actually staying in home, the requirement of natural gas would be there, and not as bad as crude oil. So that is. So yeah, uh, questions here. What is the settlement date of Brain crude? It is towards the end of the month. It is towards the end of the month, Samitji. Maybe 30, 31st, towards that time. You cannot buy oil, as I said, that the present month would definitely go down. The next month you don't know when the price will when the price are going to rise. So there is a contango. This structure is called contango, where present month is much below the next month. So every month it comes at a higher price. So there is no way you can invest in oil. There is no ETF which invests in physical oil. So you cannot uh, invest into crude oil. You cannot buy until the situation improves. You cannot buy, because when you roll over, you pay a $20 cost. You cannot buy crude oil, sir. Yes, Samir is asking, will we see a similar situation in Brent? Very likely. Because right now, US demand, US production, US consumes. That is being affected. But the Middle East is producing, rest of the world is still consuming. But this situation may any point come in the Middle East also. Sir, Reliance Industries, I don't want to comment at this point of time. Obviously, if they don't refine, they won't earn money. So that is negative. But price wise, that is a negative for Reliance, because though crude oil prices are less, what will they do if they cannot refine anything? Saudi has a reserve of around 350 billion barrels. So, and they have, if you are asking forex reserve, Saudi has a forex reserve of around 500 billion dollars and 350 billion barrels of crude oil. B1 ONGC, please. Obviously, if it is negative for the crude oil, it is negative for the ONGC from that perspective also. But again, I am not a fundamental analyst, so it won't be right for me. There is Smitaji in the club who can help you. We have a stockage club, and there's Smitaji in the fundamental team can help you regarding this. Oil market company stocks. See, oil market company stocks, the impact would be kind of that it would be a little bit uh, negative only because they won't be refining anything. Though the input cost is low, but they won't be refining anything, so they won't be earning anything. Again, I'm not a fundamental interest. I'm talking from common sense. I'm a crude commodity analyst and a technical analyst. Should we follow signals generated by RSI? So here I would like to give you a sense. One second, as you asked, uh, let me show you, and let me actually close few of the windows because that's how it becomes a little bit easy for me to navigate because it has become very heavy. By the way, all of you, please can follow me in the Twitter. As I said, I post about the crude oil very often in the Twitter. So trader underscore SOURADEP, and you can also I request all of you to also follow Vivek sir. I will show his Twitter handle also here. Yeah, so this is Viv Bajaj at the rate of Viv Bajaj. So you can follow. So we generally very active into Twitter. We post about the markets very often, as you can see. And as someone was asking about a crude oil strategy, I would like to show you something uh, here. So this is our webinar section. So I have a few days back, based on request of many of the traders, had done a crude oil webinar. I will go to that. Just give me a second. So these are lot of webinars. You can select many of them, many topics, but this is the one A to Z profitable crude oil trading webinar that we are having. And as crude is very active right now, a lot of people want to trade in crude. We have made it giving a 50% discount on this. That discount coupon is shared in Vivek Bajaj sir's Twitter handle. So if you want to learn about crude oil, the details about the fundamentals and technical strategies and how to play the inventory, you can actually look at this. So this is the crude oil A to Z profitable crude oil trading strategy. You can actually subscribe to this. I have described the entire crude oil fundamentals and two technical strategies in this. Yeah, I will come back to the questions. Yeah, questions are here. Indian stock market is falling because there is no economic activity. How to join your team, Vivek sir? This question is to Vivek sir. No, the webinar is not Hindi Arun Batterjee. This is in English. As the Gulf economy, Samirji is saying, will suffer with the low crude, which is trigger massive sell-off in those markets. Can we expect this money to shift to Indian market? So their market is not that big. But the factor is that what will happen is that forex reserve will be depleted to a great extent. And weakness in Gulf countries is a weakness for India also because many of the Indian exports go there. So it is not that the money would come to India. Right now, every money is going to US treasuries, which are considered the Uh, is the scenario beneficial? No, sir is answering it. Why Brent oil is traded at premium to WTI oil? Because, sir, the crude oil WTI, which is traded, I have explained that in my webinar also, that I showed you. Because the reason is that the transporting cost, US, what it produces, it consumes a lot in itself only, in its own country only. But what happens is that the crude oil that is exported, there is a exporting cost to other countries, which is the Brent crude oil. That's why it is a little bit higher. There are some other causes also, like the pipeline, the crude oil that is produced in the USA is mostly in the East Coast, and from the East Coast, the US sorry US refineries are in the East Coast, and US oil fields are in the central US or Midwest. So that's why it is not always very easy to transport US own oil to its own refineries. So that's why what happens is that US, though produces a better grade of oil, it is not always easy to transport through pipeline to its own refineries. So that's why they have to give an discount to the Brent oil that comes. That then only US refiners would take the crude oil, because transporting oil through pipeline is very expensive. Compared to that, from Middle East, it goes through waterborne way. So waterborne crude is paying 26. Why will someone buy an expensively transported crude oil? So that's why, the due to the transportation cost, US crude oil to US refiners come at a little bit lower cost. Why US is not reducing supply? Because reducing supply is not that easy. You need almost 1 month to close a crude oil production facility, and when you close a crude oil facility, again opening it is much costlier than keep on producing and wasting the oil. And that is why they are not closing, because restarting would have a very big cost. Also, a lot of people will actually lose job. Dow pointing 500-point drop already. Okay. In such market, technical works. Obviously, technical works. If you go through the strategy that I've discussed, that it produces many good trades. And you can see the knowing fundamentals and technicals are equally important, because whatever the tweets that we have made before the event, we have made that it would go negative, it would go in single digit. That has happened, and that happened because we know the fundamentals also. So knowing both technicals and fundamentals are important for crude trading. $20 per barrel, Ujjal Verma ji. So in USA, in India, 100 barrel is the lot size. So $20 means almost 1400 rupees. So if you roll over at 1400 rupees every month, then in 2 months it will be huge amount of money. So 100 into 1400, $20 is 1400, 100 into 1400. So to roll over itself, you would be paying almost 1 lakh 40,000. Uh, Satish, MCA is asking, will petrol prices go down in India? That you have to ask the government. We don't know this. India is stocking up crude oil, Samir Kumarji, but it is not possible to stock up above 14 million, 40 million, because India's storage is 40 million, and that was built in last 5 years. Before that, India didn't have any strategic reserves of the country. Yes, there is a correlation between crude prices, because these collapses are having Vaibhavji, and due to these collapses, what will happen is that there will be many defaults by the oil companies. Many oil companies will go bankrupt, and that will have a financial impact, and that actually can actually push gold higher if there is a lot of risk into the system. हम हिंदी में भी बात करेंगे, नो इंग्लिश, मतलब बिकॉज वी वांटेड टू रीच अ वाइडर ऑडियंस, इसलिए हमने इंग्लिश में किया, बट हम हिंदी में भी थोड़ी थोड़ी बात करेंगे। कोई आप पूछिए मनु जी, आपका कोई प्रश्न होगा तो मैं हिंदी में भी जवाब देने का कोशिश करूंगा। Natural gas, sir, I'm not a natural gas analyst and I have a very vague idea, and that is of fundamental of natural gas. So I cannot give you exact view as I could give for the crude oil before the things happen. Yeah, technically I can have a view, but fundamentally I have no view on natural gas, Akshat Vakharia ji. Uh, so you need to talk to a natural gas analyst for that. What is TMR? What is TMR? Going forward, what should be doing in terms of trade? Which instrument, sir? Pankaj Harlalka ji. Oh, Hindi will do on tomorrow. That is tomorrow. That is what sir is saying. Hindi हम कल करेंगे. Tomorrow. Tomorrow is tomorrow. सर बोल रहे हैं tomorrow. गोल्ड एंड क्रूड ऑयल मैंने अभी बताया दीपक शाह जी कि अगर फाइनेंशियल बैंक्रप्सी ऑयल प्रोड्यूसिंग कंपनीज के आती रहे तो सिस्टम में रिस्क बढ़ जाएगा, डिफॉल्ट होता रहेगा, तो गोल्ड ऊपर जा सकता है. Jai Corp, this is not the place. You tweet me, Vikram ji. I will try to give you view on Jai Corp in my Twitter handle. Crude oil is traded all countries in the world. Kumar Srinivas Avaruji. In India, you cannot buy. In India, maximum 3 months are traded. So you cannot buy December contracts, sir. Hello, sir. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this. So if you have a follow-on question, you can tweet me TRADER at the rate of SOURADEP. TRADER, I will again show you. So TRADER underscore SOURADEP. You can follow me and you can follow Vivek Bajaj sir at the rate of Vip Bajaj. So if you follow us, we will be answering your question. Thanks for being with us. Thank you. হ্যাঁ এবার এটা স্টপ করে দাও। কি করে করবো, কেটে দেবো? এন্ড স্ট্রিম আছে। না না না, ওখানে ইউটিউবের পেজটাতেই এন্ড স্ট্রিম আছে। এন্ড স্ট্রিম করে দেবো তাই তো? এন্ড স্ট্রিম করে দিয়েছি।